Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of HorseShow360 podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again. We've got a real treat here today. We're out here at the Kentucky 3-day event. First year ever 5-star for the Kentucky International CSI 5-star. And I'm joined today by Dan Reed, Chief Steward of this event. And we've worked together for 10 years now. I think Dan stewarded and chiefed our first show ever at our old farm here in Lexington. So we've worked together for a long, long time. So I think this episode is all about stewarding. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions when it comes to stewarding, a lot of different rule things and aspects and everything like that, as well as things in the barn and things and questions like that. So I definitely wanted to talk to you about those things and some questions relating to that, some new rules that are in place, and also the environment that the stewards live in, all those different kinds of things. So thank you for joining us. Can you give us a little bit of background on your history in the sport, history in the business? I know you also are fortunate enough to do this with your wife, Colleen, as well. So that dynamic and anything you want to add and how you got into doing this.
I'm not from a horse background. I mean, my family didn't do horses or anything like that. I started for a job during high school, mucking out stalls, cleaning stalls, and it was
a long time, dude.
Yeah, it was a week or two ago, and did that, and then started riding at that same farm a little bit.
Okay, so you did ride.
Yeah.
You said not a horse background.
My family was never from a horse background.
Mine not, right?
Yeah. So I actually moved after high school, moved down to the Carolinas. I was like 19 and showed and rode for a sailboat. A guy named Max Bonham, old timer.
Okay.
And showed and rode a bunch. And then got another job grooming at Fairfield Hunt Club. Was there for about 10 years as the manager there.
I showed at Fairfield when I was a kid.
Did you? Yeah. It was a great, great place. And so actually it's getting reborn.
I think I started showing there literally 30 years ago.
Were you from the New York area?
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I did. Yeah. Yeah, and then did that for a bunch of years, and then actually started my own company with Dandy Products. So
when did you start Dandy Products?
88.
Oh, wow. That one.
Yeah.
Okay. And you do all sorts of like equine products, stabling products.
Yeah, a lot of the different things, water jumps, bigger pulleys, and hatting and protective gear and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and that's led into a whole variety with same 10 years and stuff like that. But sports hatting and things like that. So it's pretty good. And but before when I left the farm, which I was financially was set, I had a house a whole bit, and I thought, I'm gonna start my own company.
Yeah.
But to do that, I had to have an income because I wouldn't make any money doing that. So David Disler actually asked me, "Hey, can you stand in the schooling area during these trials and so kind of watch the schooling area and this, that, and the other?" So that led into stewarding eventually.
Wow.
And so my first big stewarding situation was Atlanta Olympics in '96. So did that, and then it kind of snowballed from there.
That's amazing. We did a podcast a couple months ago with Guillermo George, who's the horse designer actually here for the 5-star, and he mentioned Atlanta being his first real big break by now out of every horse design. So that's a common event that really jumpstarted a lot.
Yeah, it hit off perfect. So, and then I always say I'm the luckiest steward you will. I get to work these shows, the Split Rock shows. That's the best. Second tier would be on the upper.
You gotta save the questions for later.
Okay.
I had the horse show related questions for you. But yeah, no. So like, it's funny because I feel like stewards kind of sometimes get a bad rap. They're like the police of the event, whether it be for USCF or FEI and everything like that. And for me, it's really important to have a good working relationship with the stewards because as an organizer, because literally, they really go hand in hand. And I think we're both here probably for the exhibitors and the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Like, And I think one thing that I've always admired about you, the way you work as a steward, is you're very logical. You're very you often are. You're always calm. You're always cool and collected. And it's not just about performance, but it's true. It's why we at Split Rock really enjoy working with you and your school, because you know everything, all the decisions that you make sense. And I think when, of course, when riders and groups or grooms or anybody, trainers that, offended with a steward or something like that, is because they feel like the steward is making a decision that's maybe not in their best interest. So you're being applied. Like, I think that that's a tough one. And I think good stewards, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're too good to work logical conclusion.
That's supposed to be the job. Is we're not to police it. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have to. If someone does something wrong or it's not correct or it's a violation, we have to enforce it. But we're not there to try to catch somebody or to police somebody or whatever. It's more of a just the helping hand to try to make sure. A lot of some of your shows will do like a 2-star event that's newer riders. You do more teaching, and that's what you're supposed to do, is grow this sport. Well,
not so much as rule enforcement as rule education.
Exactly. Just kind of helping them, and most people are so appreciative about it, because they're not getting hollered at, they're not getting screamed at, they're just getting an explanation on, they don't do that again, and here's why. They don't mind not doing it again, they just don't know why they couldn't.
And a lot of times, on other podcasts, we definitely talk about mutual respect and everything. And have there been a lot of times where competitors and everybody have really crossed the line of respect with you, or are you able to really de-escalate a situation? I think the problem is all riders, and innately and human nature in general, everybody's always looking to you. You're always looking for that next advantage, not necessarily like predictably or purposely or having any malintent, but everybody always wants to succeed best for available. So stewards' jobs are in there to make sure that they're doing within the rules and everything. And sometimes things can be really here.
And these 5-star events like this event here, I mean, you've got an amazing cast here of horses and riders, and they are going to ride the edge and try to win and try to do whatever it takes to win within the rules. The one wanting to break the rules, but they need to try to do it to the best of their ability that they can. And there's times that we'd have to say, hey, hang on, this is over the top, or maybe that attack's not correct, or whatever it may be. And there are times when it's pretty heated. It can get quite heated sometimes. And I do know an Orca fan was an Omaha. There's a you right there, and some exhibitor tonight. I mean, knockdown, drag out. And met him in school there the next morning. Hey, yesterday. Yeah, I agree. Move on, and hey, we're pretty good friends now. So it's just, I think, like you said, a mutual respect is everything. For me, flying off the handle and screaming at him and getting mad or whatever, there's no respect there.
Sure.
So, but to work together, and he has to understand that what my job is, what his job is.
Yep, absolutely. I think that that's a common thing that happens with all officials, all judges, all horse show event employees and everything like that. Is just that it's important to be able to de-escalate a situation like that. And I think that the stewards, judges, and horse show management in general, especially from the competitor side and exhibitor side, take a lot of people, a lot of areas. But in general, it's everything that's done is made to keep the event cohesive as a whole, right? And I think that that's really hard to manage. And I know everybody appreciates the way you kind of, and that's a really important thing. And I'm just curious as to how often you feel like, somebody might disrespect you in a way or cross the line or anything like that. Also, when you're stewarding, how often, like this is a 5-star event, this is the biggest and best, right? We had so many Olympic horses that won Paris last year, here competing, top 10 riders in the world, everything. Like, is it often that you have to really correct people and see people trying to toe the line, like you're saying, or not necessarily cheat, but like, how often do you find things that you shouldn't?
Not as often as you think. Everybody's sure that we're always catching people, but it's funny. I always say that it's easier to steward a major event, a championship or finals or something like that, because they're there. The professionals are there to do the job, and they know what they're there to do, and that's what they're doing. You get to a 3 or 4 star event, and that's when you have more problems, is because there's maybe it's a younger horse that somebody's riding, or it's a newer rider or whatever, and that's where I've had the most problems. And you will have some big arguments there and descriptions. And look, I've been wrong plenty of times, and I think that's a big thing for any officials or steward or judge or whatever, to be able to understand and admit that they are. We all have 4 faults. That's just part of it sometimes. So I don't mind my 4 faults. I don't like my 12 faults.
Sure, and I think it goes back to the last thing we were talking about. I think, trainers and riders and everything, if they approach a situation with an open mind and respect and anything like that, then a common outcome can be able to come.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, one of the main things that I see from people doing stewards and stewarding, and that is the biggest uphill battle. But I think horsemanship really comes into play. Like I was saying, like, I think it's so important for a steward to be a really a true horseman, work with the riders, work with the organizers in order to come up with a great outcome. And there's oftentimes, I think there's a big misconception with stewards. A lot of stewards come at it, or officials for that matter, or even organizers, maybe even myself at some points and stuff, of not making sure that they're setting the right tone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's something that I've struggled with in experience with a lot of stewards out there, that it's a little bit of a power play situation or things like
it can be,
and,
for sure.
And that really, like, not only affects me as an organizer, but I can see it affecting the riders that run. I've been in positions with even stewards before that I truly have felt they've made up their own rules in some situations, whether it be for something that is not that wrongful to some situation or something, but it's something that might make them more comfortable, or this or that. And for me, that's like not good.
It's difficult, there's no doubt. And you'll find more trouble when you have an official on the ground and a trainer on the ground training a student. They're much more defensive training a student, much more defensive as opposed to them riding themselves.
Yeah.
They're riding themselves, they know what they've done or had it done. But when they're training somebody, they're trying to, we don't know, we don't care. Maybe you're trying to sell a horse, maybe they're trying to buy a horse, maybe we're trying to convince this rider that
Well, they want them to do as well as possible.
stable. Then a lot of riders, the trainers can get better. So for them, they look at the situation and then they get it. So once one of them gets really upset or really fired up, and then you have a push from a maybe official, or a push from a trainer, and then they push it back, and then you got a couple stronger egos kind of going at each other, and that's when the two of you have been trouble with anything.
What's something out there that you'd like competitors or people to know that you'd like to see different from riders?
Understanding.
Years.
Yeah. We, a lot of them just figure that you used to the license, you used to it, but, we have continual education every year. There's different levels of stewarding, and every year it's cost me $8,000 to $10,000 a year for education. Depending on the official and where they're at.
So it's you $8,000 to $10,000
You can.
to keep up education to be done.
It is true.
Wow.
5 to 8. I'll say 5 to 8,000.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because there's education.
Through what? Through seminars and educational programs?
Every couple of years. Every year, starting December, we have an online course that we do for about 2 months. You have to do all officials, which is actually very big. FEI puts it as a very big. Then every year you have to upgrade your license or maintain your license. There are 3-day seminars every 2 or 3 years you have to go to. And I mean, some of the people are flying. We got one of our stewards here that's going next week to Tokyo. So you do a film. She's paying out of the airfare, pays a hotel, it's for the clinic, things like that. So there's a lot more into it than what people think. I mean, it's not just handed and go out to the world, you know.
Yeah, but in general, just like anything else, you guys are investing in
Sure.
future business and everything like that. But it takes up, and there's always new rules and new ways of looking at things. That honestly, the sport is changing so dramatically, so fast. Every year, it feels like.
And it's getting bigger and better every year. Better than it was 20 years ago, you know. So
And you used to do just FEI events, or do you some national events?
I'll do some national
Yes,
events
yeah.
and school and air supervisor. What I actually do is I teach a lot too. There, I teach a lot of clinics. I'll teach a lot. We got a little thing going on today, teaching about the American country and stuff like that. So
For other students.
yeah, also, which I really do enjoy that. I think that's a big plus. I'm a big guy, a big mindset on giving back. I think we all have to do that eventually.
Yeah, that's super important to honestly to get a bigger pool of their stewards, especially as there's more events around the world every week. It's so important.
And what you had said earlier about, learning and teaching with people don't, I can take 4 people out there and teach them the rules and teach them all the jumps and teach them the barn rules, stuff like that. I can't make them a horse person.
Yeah.
If that's not part of it. And a lot of riders do kind of understand that because they're hiring staff every week or every other week they're hiring. They can hire somebody to teach them how to clean stall, but they can't teach them how to be a horse person either. A worker and how to be. So that's the difficult part.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I know a lot of it's all about riders and everybody pushing the envelope. I think, and that's the conception with the stewards, how they sometimes can get a bad rap and everything like that. But again, that education is so important, and that if stewards keep coming at it, continually educating themselves, continually coming at it, that they can work with the clients, come at it from a calm perspective, then any safe conclusion can come of it. What other, in your opinion, what do you think of this event, the 5-star? You've been working this event since its inception in 2018. It started as a 3-star. We worked as a 3-star for a few years. Last year was a 4-star. This year's the first year as a 5-star. The lineup is absolutely incredible. What do you think about this event, and what do you think of, you've worked events all over the world. I'll put you on the spot, but what's your favorite event that you've ever worked at?
Oh gosh. Favorite event.
Non-championship.
Yeah. I've gotten, I groomed early on, like I said before, and I groomed at a bunch of the shows in Europe and travel and something, great time. So I actually got to go last year as a foreign steward into Aachen. And so to go back to something like that as an official and to grooming it 2 or 3 times. That was probably really, really one of my more special points. I think that was great.
What was your role?
I was a foreign steward.
Okay, foreign steward.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I feel like most major officials, riders, everybody says Aachen.
Yeah,
And honestly, this event, when we started this event, the common phrase as organizers of us that in conversation, this was, we do want to create the Aachen, but learn it here. And I think this is probably the closest thing to it. We have 12,000 spectators for the Grand Prix on Saturday night, and it's really an unbelievable atmosphere. So to be able to capitalize on an atmosphere, a tradition, like is the 3-day event, like Aachen, it's somewhat.
With this show, I thought 3 or 4 years ago when it started, I thought, that's a great idea. I mean, not just to be saying that to you, but I mean, it's been sitting here for years, and you have an infrastructure, you have a base, you have a crowd. Just your night event, you're an event to follow. We started years ago with the smaller levels and smaller horses and newer horses and riders and things like that. And it's grown into this, which when some of these people ride in their Saturday nights, they're not going to believe what they're riding into because they're not used to this. So it's capitalizing on a great event and adding to it to make it a good, better event.
Yeah, I mean this event is pretty incredible, and that's one of the things that I definitely want to do is capitalize on the event. Like you can't recreate the tradition of this and that like this. And the people that attended are so incredible and are such loyal fans that it just creates has for like no other. But like for you guys, even though we only have one class a day, does that make it easier, harder for you all? Are you patrolling the barns more because you have less events going on? Like what's a different protocol?
Yeah, even though that we only had one class a day, the ones that aren't showing, like we had a large number of horses that didn't show, not a large 20 horses didn't show today, but they were all flatting or doing some schooling after ship class and stuff like that. So, and over the next few days, we'll have a lot more of that. Events are done showing and before showing with the mega classes. So that staying busy in the barn. For me, I like staying busy. You know, inevitably, I will wait all night for the class, let's say Saturday night or Friday night, and I'll forget something. I won't have Liverpool. I won't have something like that, something like that. So, and I'll be like, So, to stay busy, it keeps you on your game a little bit better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what are some things that you think, some things that you think riders and trainers and owners should be aware of, or new rules that are implemented this year? I consider you a high performance steward. You know, so like when I'm like asking these questions, like I sort of direct them a little bit more towards like FEI and high performance sport and anything. But what are some things like either at USEF events or at FEI events that you think riders should really be aware of this year?
This year
it's changing. What kind of trends are happening now?
This year, coming this year right now, this is a real change year. So the FEI every 4 years are real changes. So everything got submitted through the winter months and the early spring, got sent to the FEI. We'll tweak it, move it up or down, and stuff like that, and then come out with new rules in December. So, the new rule changes. Well, actually, for the first of the year, be effective the first of the year.
Is there anything in particular that you think is like really special or groundbreaking that's going to be big?
At the start of this year, there was some tack issues, and we have a new noseband tool that starts May 1st, which, all of us, including myself, when it was first introduced, I did some testing with it at FEI, and asked me to do some testing with it last summer, which was interesting. And I was very much against it, and really gone, yes, and I got working. It's actually much better than I thought. I think they started out at 11, they were wanting to start out at 11, not wanting it. It's meeting in the middle, and it's actually going to be really, I think it's going to work well. I think it's going to be a good tool at the end. Stuff like that.
So, give us a little background on that. So, do you think that these nosebands are always going to, or have to be just hanging there and ineffective? Or
well, that's what everybody was worried about so much. But with the way this tool works, we did it in Ocala with a lot of the European riders this year, and we put it on to where the tool would go through, snug, but it would work. You couldn't really tighten the noseband any tighter. That'd be about tight as you could do it legally, and the tool worked. And then I had 3 or 4 riders come up with the noseband, on a live horse, and they could feel it. And it was, all 3 of them said it was plenty tight enough to ride on. So that's made me a little bit more understanding about it and everything else, because that's what they're doing. They go, I could ride in that. That's plenty tight. I don't need it any tighter. Maybe sometimes we have one little hole tighter or something like that, but I don't have to.
Do you foresee any like steward subjectivity coming into play with that?
It's pretty gray. So it's not pretty. Excuse me. It's pretty black and white.
Okay.
But that's what I meant to say. They're fully black and white, but also with the noseband tool, it's a cost discipline tool, and so that makes it so very few rules do we have that cover all disciplines. Wow. Horse welfare and safety and things like that, of course. To get an individual rule that covers all that, so all disciplines have to use this tool.
Are there any other rules or trends that have become like really controversial over the years? I mean, I know they're always changing the rules with men boots and everything like that. Like what things are like the most influential?
The boot thing is probably the most influential because Simon & Buddhist Chains. There's another one that's on the market within a few weeks. And, just keeping up with it, and even some of the good riders will tell you that they don't know that it's actually the boot. It's maybe another month frame, but the attack is on the biggest issue. It's attached equipment, and always it's an ongoing situation to learn what is horse welfare, what is not, what.
Yeah. So I think it's great that you keep doing educational programs with new and up-and-coming stewards, or even always having to refresh your brain on new rules and new systems. Like I said in the beginning, I think stewards always can de-escalate the situation if something that happened, of course. Sure, but I think riders can always relate to that, and trainers can always relate to that. And that's really one of the most important things. And I think it's important, correct me if I'm wrong, but stewards are here to help the exhibitors stay within the rules, but also, like you said, stay within the, horse welfare aspects and all other aspects. And right? Since they're here to assist and help the federations kind of having.
There's a little thing the FEI put out a bunch of years ago. The stewards' motto is to help prevent and intervene, and that's exactly
help prevent and
intervene.
That's a great area.
That's what they're out there to do. And if it gets carried away, it escalates too high, well, you intervene differently. But if you can just help, first of all, people are more than welcome to work with them.
Sure. Well, awesome, Dan. Well, we appreciate you so much being on this podcast. I know you're super busy here at the 5-Star here in Kentucky, but we appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into another episode of HorseShow360 podcast. Don't forget to tune in on all your podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on HorseShow360 Instagram, or you can watch full episodes on HorseShow360 Podcast YouTube channel. So thank you again, Dan.
Thanks.
And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.